You knew to tilt the RC bottle before the peanuts went in, knew a cold biscuit with sorghum was worth walking home for, knew the first frost made the persimmons sweet. Nobody wrote any of that down. Here are 30 forgotten hillbilly snacks from the 1970s that faded with the hands that made them. Peanuts in an RC Cola was the one ritual every mountain kid performed without being taught. Tilt the bottle slightly, pour the salted peanuts past the neck, feel them hit the cola and fizz up in a sweet salt cloud, then drink. The peanuts sank, then floated. Then you got both at once, cold carbonation and soft beer nut richness that no store ever packaged together because nobody needed to. RC. Cola had deep roots in Appalachia. Royal Crown spread through the mining towns and hollows long before convenience stores arrived. The miner's cola, the working man's 79-cent choice. The peanuts were Lance or Tom's, picked up at the register. Nobody told you the ratio. You watched someone do it once, your father, your uncle, some older boy at the filling station, and you knew. Your grandmother did it the same way her mother did. When she stopped being there to do it, nobody reached for those peanuts the same way anymore. The cold biscuit with cane syrup needed no recipe, just a leftover cat head biscuit from morning, gone cool on the back of the stove, split with a thumb, filled with a slow pour of sorghum from a tin with a hinged lid. The biscuit soaked it from the inside out. You held it over the sink because it ran. Some families pressed butter in first, so it sealed. Sorghum came from the community press, boiled down in iron kettles every fall. Mountain families relied on it as their primary sweetener because sugarcane never grew at that elevation. By the time the 1970s came around, you could still find Dixie Dew syrup in some cabinets, the label claiming it gave a biscuit a college education, and old-timers found it funny and a little sad that you now had to buy what always came from a neighbor's press. The after-school ritual that needed no permission and no dish went quiet after that. Cracklins in a paper bag were not pork rinds, and any mountain child would tell you so without blinking. Real cracklins came from hog butchering day, the skin and fat layer cut into squares, dropped into a boiling lard kettle, and cooked until they puffed and turned golden, the outer shell shattering when you bit through to a chewy, fatty center that tasted like concentrated smokehouse and fire. Shaken in a paper bag with salt while still hot, eaten by the handful while the kettle was still going. There was no second batch, only what came off that hog that day in that yard. The Cherokee in Appalachia had long rendered animal fat as both food and medicine, and European settlers adopted the total-use butchering practice. Fat became lard, skin became cracklins, bones became broth. Store-bought pork rinds are puffed with air and dusted with powder. Cracklins were dense, dark, bitter at the edges where the fat caramelized against the iron. The women who knew how to render them slow are mostly gone. The kettle rusted. A moon pie and an RC Cola carried a price and a history. The marshmallow-filled graham cracker sandwich coated in chocolate or banana, paired with Royal Crown, cost under a dime apiece at the company store. The moon pie was created in 1917 at the Chattanooga Bakery in Tennessee when a traveling salesman visited a coal camp and asked what miners wanted. Something big, filling, cheap enough to eat on a break. They held their hands in a circle and described it the size of the moon. By the 1970s, every mountain child knew the ritual. One bite of moon pie, then a long pull of cold RC. The carbonation cut through the marshmallow in a way no other drink could match. Pepsi was wrong. Coke was wrong. RC was the one. Old men at the filling station did this the same way on a Tuesday in 1972 they had in 1952. When the company store closed and the stool went with it, the man who always sat there went too. The moon pie is still on the rack. The rest of it is gone. But years before any hillbilly snack came wrapped in cellophane, your grandmother was already in the garden eating tomatoes off the vine with a pocket knife and a salt shaker from her apron pocket. Sun-warmed tomatoes halved over the palm, salted directly on the red flesh. No kitchen, no dishes. The salt drew out the juice immediately. You ate fast, standing between the rows, the warm liquid running down your wrist. Appalachian families grew open-pollinated varieties passed from neighbor to neighbor for generations, softer, thinner-skinned, more acidic than anything bred for shipping. The tomato bled when you cut it. The salt shaker was always in her apron. When she stopped going to the garden herself, nobody thought to put one in their pocket before walking out there. Peanut butter and Caro syrup fudge was made in a bowl without a stove, a thermometer, or much patience. Spoon peanut butter into a bowl, pour Caro corn syrup over it, stir until it stiffened into a dense, sticky mass that held its shape when you pinched off a piece. That was the candy. Hard in the refrigerator, soft in a warm kitchen, eaten off the fingers or rolled into balls and dusted with powdered sugar. Mountain women called it poor man's fudge, which was accurate. Real chocolate fudge required a candy thermometer and cream, neither guaranteed. Caro and peanut butter were always in the cabinet. Corn syrup had been a staple in Appalachian kitchens since the early 20th century when cane sugar was too expensive and peanuts from the Piedmont lowlands made peanut butter an affordable staple. Two cheap ingredients, one snack better than anything fancy. The women who made it never measured. You could not get it right if you measured. Honeysuckle grew along every fence line and ditch bank in Appalachia, and any mountain child knew the exact method. Pinch the green base between two fingers, pull the stamen through slowly from the bottom until the tiny, clear bead of nectar appeared at the tip. Touch it to your tongue. One drop. Pure concentrated sweetness, unlike anything sold. You worked the vine for 10 minutes for a tablespoon total, and it was worth every minute. Japanese honeysuckle spread through the South and Appalachian mountains so thoroughly it was classified as invasive. But to mountain children, it was just the free snack on every fence all summer, requiring only patience and the knowledge of how to pull the stamen without losing the drop. Nobody taught it formally. You watched an older child once, and the motion transferred completely. Your grandmother could strip a vine faster than any child, her fingers recalling 60 years of practice. The vine still grows on those same fence lines. Nobody works it for nectar anymore. Pickled bologna from the jar was a transaction you understood before you could read the handwritten price on the lid. The gallon glass jar sat on the counter of every mountain general store. Dense rings of bologna in pale pink brine, a pair of tongs that you worked yourself, fishing out a thick slice and laying it on a soda cracker. The bologna went soft in the brine, turned sour and spongy, the vinegar tang cutting through the fat in a way no fresh deli slice could. A nickel, sometimes a dime by the end of the decade. Old men argued about whose brine was best. There were strong opinions. A general store owner in Pike County, Kentucky, reportedly never wrote down his pickling recipe, and when he died, his regulars grieved in a way that surprised their families. It was just bologna. Everyone who had ever stood at that counter knew it was not just bologna. The jar disappeared when the stores closed. Nothing replaced either one. Salt-rising bread was not made on a schedule. It rose when it wanted to. An honest description of bread that relied on naturally occurring bacteria captured in cornmeal, milk, and salt, left to ferment overnight near the wood stove. The smell alarmed anyone who had not grown up with it. Sharp, cheesy, faintly like old feet. And that smell meant it was working. Baked, the crumb was dense and tangy, the structure tight enough to toast to a hard golden crunch. Buttered while hot, it was an event. Salt-rising bread originated in Appalachia as a solution to expensive commercial yeast, and mountain bakers in West Virginia and Kentucky had kept the skill alive since before the Civil War. By the 1970s, the women who still made it by feel, reading the smell to know if the ferment had turned, were running short on apprentices. You did not learn it from a cookbook. You stood in the kitchen and watched and smelled, or you never learned at all. Black walnut cracking was a community chore that doubled as a snack event, and the mountain method surprised outsiders every time. The walnuts came off trees in green husks that permanently stained everything they touched: skin, clothes, pavement, dark brown black. First step, drive the car slowly over them in the lane to soften the husks. Then a hammer for the hard inner shell. The meat inside was bitter and intensely flavored, Nothing like mild English walnuts in any store. You picked it out in small pieces with a nut pick, fingers stained for days, and ate it straight or stirred it into sweet bread cooling on the stove. Black walnuts are native to the Appalachian region. The Cherokee had harvested them for centuries, grinding them into pastes and pressing them for oil. By the 1970s, most households bought walnuts in a bag from the grocery. In the hollows, families still drove over theirs in the lane first. The grandmother who presided always ate the least and picked the fastest, and she made it look easy in a way it absolutely was not. Pawpaws grew in the low-shaded hollows near creeks, and you had to know where to find them. The trees gave no obvious signal, and the fruit did not survive being carried. The native Appalachian fruit ripened in late August into something that tasted like banana crossed with mango, a custard yellow flesh loose around large dark seeds. You ate it under the tree, splitting it with your thumbs, scooping out the flesh with your fingers, because the fruit bruised black and soft within a day of picking. This is why no one outside the mountains had tasted one fresh. Pawpaws are the largest fruit native to North America, eaten by Native Americans for thousands of years. Lewis and Clark relied on them for food in 1806. Appalachian families guarded their groves with silence and quiet misdirection. Your grandfather knew where 3 groves were. He showed your father one. He showed you the same one. The other 2 locations went with him when he went. Fried apple hand pies were made from the apples that could not be stored, the soft spot ones, the early fallers, the ones that would not survive winter in the root cellar. Cooked down with sugar and cinnamon, folded into lard-based dough, crimped with a fork, and fried in a cast-iron skillet until both sides turned golden and the filling set hard enough to hold when you bit through. Small enough for one hand, solid enough to last all day in a coat pocket. Mountain families often used dried apples, hung from the rafters through fall when fresh ones ran out, and the dried version made a sweeter, more concentrated filling. By the 1970s, the younger generation was reaching for Little Debbie pies at the gas station instead. The gas station pie was uniform. Same weight, same sweetness every time. The fried hand pie was different every time depending on who made the dough and how hot the lard ran, which is to say, nobody has gotten it exactly right since the woman who made it stopped making it. Sorghum pulled candy required the whole family, which is why it happened the way it happened. The syrup cooked in an iron pot to soft crack stage, tested by dropping a thread into cold water, then poured onto a buttered board to cool until it could be handled. Everyone buttered their hands and pulled. 2 people took a rope between them, stretched it, folded it back, pulled again, until the dark amber mass turned golden and glossy and aerated. It lightened in color as you worked it, stiffened at the edges, and when it was done, you twisted it into pieces. Sorghum was the mountain sweetener because sugarcane could not grow at elevation. Families processed it communally every fall, hauling stalks to the neighborhood press and dividing the syrup among households. Children were given their own small rope so they felt useful and stayed out of the way. Nobody makes pulled sorghum candy anymore. The syrup is still out there. The occasion that gathered the hands is gone. Persimmon pudding required patience and timing. You had to wait for the first hard frost, because before the frost, the wild persimmon was astringent enough to dry your mouth out for an hour. After the frost, it turned soft and honey-like, and you pressed it through a colander to get the pulp. Mixed with sugar, eggs, buttermilk, and flour, it baked into a dense, dark pudding served cold from the windowsill. Smooth and rich, tasting of autumn and something wild underneath. Wild persimmons are native to the eastern United States. The frost ripening requirement was noted by early European explorers who ate them too soon and regretted it. Mountain families knew the rule by feel. You picked them after the black frost, not before. The woman who kept that calendar is gone. The persimmon trees still fruit every fall. Nobody times the picking right anymore. Watermelon with salt on it was the Appalachian summer ritual that every outsider thought was a mistake until they tried it. You did not sprinkle lightly. You put a real pinch directly on the red flesh, let it sit 3 seconds, then ate through that first bite where the salt had drawn the juice out and deepened the sweetness. Mountain children ate it outside on the steps because it ran, and the seed-spitting contests were taken seriously in some households. Sodium enhances sweetness perception by suppressing bitterness. That is why salted watermelon tastes more like itself than plain watermelon, but nobody explained that to the children who did it. They watched adults do it and copied the motion, the same as everything else in those kitchens. The argument about salt on watermelon still starts at reunions. The grandmother who always won it without saying a word is not there to settle it anymore. Potato candy was one of the stranger Appalachian confections. Leftover mashed potatoes, cooled completely, mixed with powdered sugar until a firm dough formed, rolled thin, spread with peanut butter, rolled into a log and sliced into pinwheels. No baking after the potatoes were cooked. The result was a dense, sweet candy with a spiral of peanut butter through the center that tasted nothing like potatoes, which was the whole point. Appalachian potato candy's origins are uncertain. Some food historians link it to German and Irish immigrant communities who brought potato-based sweets from regions where potatoes were plentiful and refined sugar scarce. The earliest versions may have been only mashed potato and powdered sugar, the peanut butter added later. By the 1970s, it showed up at church socials and school bake sales, and people who did not know what it was took one piece and went back for 3 more. It cost almost nothing to make. It tasted like it cost something. Vienna sausages and soda crackers was the mountaineer's pocket snack. A small tin of Vienna sausages, the key-wound lid peeled back, the tiny pale cylinders pulled out one at a time with 2 fingers and set on a saltine. Soft, slightly salty, leaving a film of starchy brine on the cracker. You ate it in the truck, on the porch, at a creek bank. Under a quarter for the tin and crackers combined. Old men carried a tin in their coat pocket the way other men carried cigarettes. It was the snack you had when you were not near a kitchen and needed to be. Vienna sausages in brine have been canned in the United States since the early 20th century. A staple in rural and working communities where refrigeration was limited and a portable protein was worth its weight. The tin is still on the shelf at every dollar store. Somehow, it is not the same without the porch to eat it on. Ramp sandwiches on white bread announced themselves before you could see who was carrying one. Ramps, the wild leeks that push up through forest floors in Appalachia every March and April, were pulled from the woods, washed and sliced raw onto 2 pieces of white bread with butter, sometimes salt, nothing else. The smell was somewhere between strong garlic and raw onion, and it clung to everything: hair, clothes, fingers, breath for 2 days. Mountain school districts in West Virginia and Kentucky tolerated the seasonal classroom atmosphere because there was nothing to be done. Whole families had eaten ramps for breakfast and sent their children in smelling like the forest floor. Ramps have been part of Appalachian foodways since the Cherokee used them as a spring tonic after the long winter, and European settlers adopted them immediately as the first green thing available after months of dried provisions. By the 1970s, ramp festivals in West Virginia drew hundreds who came to eat and sell and celebrate the smell. The sandwich was not the point. Getting back to the woods in spring was. Cornbread crumbled in cold buttermilk needed no explanation in any Appalachian household. You broke a piece of leftover cornbread into a tall glass of cold buttermilk, waited for it to soften, and ate it with a spoon. The cornbread soaked up the buttermilk and turned dense and slightly sour, cold and thick, and filling in a way that erased the edge off a long day without requiring a fire or a pan to wash. Buttermilk came from churning. Appalachian families with a dairy cow had it in abundance, and cornbread was always on the stove or the warming shelf. The combination was supper in lean times and a late-night snack in better ones. Your grandmother ate it from a glass on the porch in summer, the screen door open, the dark coming in slow. She was not thinking about how it tasted. She was not thinking about anything she needed to do. When she stopped sitting on that porch, the glass stopped being brought out. Chow on a saltine was a snack the relish never expected to become. It was made as a condiment, cooked at harvest end when the last of the garden had to go somewhere before frost. Cabbage, onions, green tomatoes, hot peppers, sweet peppers, vinegar, mustard, celery salt, turmeric. everything processed and canned in hot jars that lined the cellar shelves. Come winter, you opened a jar and spooned a bit onto a saltine, and what you tasted was the entire garden concentrated into a single sharp, tangy, spiced bite. Chow is a Southern and Appalachian tradition with uncertain origins. Some historians trace it to Chinese railroad workers who brought pickled vegetable condiments west, others to French colonial preservation traditions. What is certain is that no two families made it the same, and the recipe that made your grandmother's version right died with her, because she never used a recipe at all. She made it until the garden stopped giving enough to justify the canning. Then she stopped. Morel mushrooms fried in butter were called dry land fish in Appalachia, and that name tells you how they were valued: rare, seasonal, found only by people who knew where to look, and tasting like something richer than anything grown in a garden. Morels pushed up through the leaf litter in spring near dying elm trees or old apple orchards, and the people who knew where they grew kept that knowledge with them. You fried them in butter in a cast iron skillet for about 4 minutes, the edges crisping and the hollow interior steaming. The result tasted like concentrated forest, earthy and rich and slightly meaty. The honeycomb-capped mushrooms have been foraged in North America since long before European settlement. French colonial documents noted that native populations dried them for winter storage. By the 1970s, morel hunting in Appalachia was a serious spring activity. Families went out at first light to check their known spots. The spots were never written down. You learned them by following someone who knew. Dried apple slices hung on a string from the rafters through fall and winter, and the transformation was slow until you ate one. Fresh slices threaded onto cotton string, hung where air could move: a porch ceiling, kitchen rafters, a barn loft. Over weeks, they shrank to a quarter of their size, darkening to amber brown, the sugars concentrating until one dried ring tasted like 5 fresh apples pressed together. You ate them straight off the string, tough and leathery and intensely sweet with a faint fermented edge, or soaked them overnight for pies and stack cakes. Appalachian families grew old mountain varieties like winesap and limber twig that held their flavor through drying better than modern cultivars bred for fresh markets. Stringing required no jars, no canning equipment, no sugar, no heat, just patience, dry air, and the knowledge of which apples hung well. Most people who know what a dried mountain apple tastes like learned it from someone gone. Sassafras root tea was the mountain drink that hit you like a root beer you had never tasted before. Scraped bark of sassafras roots boiled in water until the liquid turned pink-red and fragrant, sweetened with a little honey and drunk hot from a tin cup. The flavor was deep and slightly anise-like, something between root beer and forest floor. The Cherokee used sassafras as a spring tonic and blood purifier, and early European settlers adopted it almost immediately. In 1976, the FDA banned commercial use of safrole, the compound in sassafras oil, after animal studies, which ended commercial root beer flavoring but did nothing to stop Appalachian families from boiling their own roots. Your grandmother kept a bundle of dried roots on the porch. She brewed a cup on cold afternoons when the fieldwork was done. When she was gone, the roots stayed on a nail for a few years before someone finally took them down. Pickled corn on the cob was one of the better-kept secrets of the Appalachian cellar. Small ears of field corn, not sweet corn, but the harder variety picked at milk stage, packed whole into a stoneware crock with salt and water, left to ferment for weeks in the cool dark. What came out was sour, slightly crunchy, deeply brined, with a lactic tang that made your mouth water before you bit through. You ate it cold, pulling kernels off with your teeth. Fermentation in stoneware crocks was one of the primary Appalachian preservation methods before canning equipment became affordable. The same process that produced sauerkraut in German communities applied to whatever the mountain garden grew. By the 1970s, most families had moved to canning jars and pressure cookers, and the stoneware crock in the cellar was going empty. The corn from a good crock tasted like nothing from a can. That knowledge went quiet when the crock stopped being filled. Sweet bread with black walnuts was the snack that needed no occasion. A dense, lightly sweetened quick bread made with cornmeal and flour, baked in a cast iron skillet. broken into rough chunks, warm from the oven and eaten with coffee or cold milk. The black walnuts were cracked from trees on the property, stirred into the batter so each piece had a few bitter, intensely flavored bits that cut against the sweetness and made you keep eating. It was not cake. It was not cornbread. It was what she made on a Thursday afternoon when the baking felt like company. Appalachian oral histories document sweetbread, sometimes called tea cake, as a common between-meal food in mountain households where full desserts were reserved for Sundays and company. Black walnuts, native to the Appalachian range, are stronger and more bitter than English walnuts. Mountain cooks who used them knew the difference by feel. You can follow the recipe now. You cannot make it feel the way it felt when you walked in from the cold and she was already breaking off a piece for you. Apple butter on a torn biscuit required planning you never saw. The apple butter itself took most of a day. Bushels of apples peeled and cooked down in a copper kettle over an outdoor fire, stirred for hours until the foam cleared and the color deepened from pale gold to dark mahogany, spiced with cinnamon and cloves and ladled into jars. What you got from that day was a spread so concentrated it took only a thin smear on a torn biscuit, a bite that tasted like 100 apples compressed into the size of your thumb. Copper kettles and communal apple butter making are documented in Appalachian mountain counties from the 18th century onward. The kettle was often shared equipment passed between households each fall. By the 1970s, fewer families had enough hands or apples to justify the day. She made it anyway. Her mother had made it. Her grandmother before that. When she stopped, the kettle stayed on the porch for years. Nobody moved it for a long time. Poke salad crackers were the snack that proved how much you trusted the woman who made them. Pokeweed grew wild along every fence line in Appalachia, a tall, purple-stemmed plant with berries genuinely toxic to humans. The leaves were edible only if boiled 3 times, the water poured off each time to strip the alkaloids, and only if you picked the young spring growth before toxins concentrated in the tissue. The cooked poke was pressed, seasoned with salt and bacon grease, and spread on crackers. Mountain families had used poke salad as a spring green since long before European settlement. The Cherokee and later Scots-Irish settlers treated it as a seasonal vegetable and spring blood tonic, similar to ramps and dandelion greens. By the 1970s, the triple boiling knowledge was fading. Few younger women had stood in the kitchen long enough to learn the difference between the number of boilings that made it safe and the number that made it perfect. You ate it because she made it. You trusted the count. You trusted her hands completely. That trust had a name once. It went by her name. Cornbread and molasses from a school tin was how the mountain knew one of its own. A small tin bucket, the kind that had held lard or syrup, packed each morning with cornbread and a small jar of sorghum, carried to school and eaten on the steps. Appalachian oral histories describe this lunch in nearly identical detail across Kentucky, West Virginia, Virginia, and Tennessee. The same tin, the same bread, the same sorghum, carried by children whose families had no cash for cafeteria food. The child who carried the tin did not think of it as deprivation. It was just what lunch was. The molasses was thick and slightly bitter at the edges. The cornbread was yesterday's, which was the right kind. By the 1970s, school cafeterias had reached most mountain districts, and the tin had stopped going out the door. What went with it was the specific memory of a child who knew what was in that tin before she packed it, who was not there to tell you what it tasted like now. Honeycomb straight from the bee gum was the sweetest thing the mountain offered and the most earned. The bee gum was a section of hollow black gum tree set on a post in the yard. Appalachian beekeepers had used them as hives since the Scotch-Irish settled the mountains in the 18th century. Harvesting meant smoke and patience and the willingness to get stung. What you got was raw comb honey, wax and all, eaten immediately, the wax chewed until the honey was gone. Sourwood honey from bees working the sourwood trees native to the Appalachian range was unlike any commercial honey. Floral, slightly anise-tinged, with a depth mountain people recognized instantly. By the 1970s, most families had stopped working the old bee gums. The ones who still did were old. When they stopped, so did the honey. The last biscuit of the week was Saturday's. The end of whatever flour was left, baked in the cast iron skillet the same as every other morning but carrying a different weight because everyone at the table knew it. You split it cold, pressed a little butter into the crumb, then drizzled sour wood honey over the top and let it run before you ate it. It cost almost nothing. It meant the week was done. Sour wood honey comes only from the Oxydendrum arboreum, native to the southern Appalachian mountains. Bees working its late summer blooms produce a honey that is pale gold, slightly anise-flavored, considered by many to be the finest honey in North America. It was not a luxury in households that kept bees. It was just what the last biscuit got. When those households stopped keeping bees and the cast iron went to someone living somewhere else, the last biscuit of the week lost its proper ending. The biscuits you make now are good. They are not those.
Since the swinging 60s, Hostess fruit pies have been pocket-sized parcels of joy, bursting with fruity goodness. Their handheld design made them a convenient option for on-the-go snacking without sacrificing flavor. These pies became the quintessential treat for those on the move, marrying convenience with the classic flavors of home-baked desserts. The addition of comic book advertisements further cemented their place in popular culture, making them a nostalgic treat for many. Despite changes in the snack food landscape, Hostess fruit pies remain popular, continuing to offer a sweet slice of nostalgia.
Cobbler had already been popular enough in Atlanta, so it would be natural that, like key lime, peach cobbler bites would become a thing too. Definitely popular in African American communities, as these were an affordable and easy way to have something nice at cookouts. Kids may not have particularly liked them, but adults in their 30s went head over heels for the bites. Marionberry pie bites are the middle ground that created a lasting peace between blackberry enthusiasts and tart diehards. Marionberry has the flavors of both, and that is what makes it really adaptable palate-wise. Anybody could really enjoy this no matter their age or whether they were millennials or Generation Z. Bakeries always at least had some kind of Marionberry pie bites in store at any given day.
Since their grand debut in 1930, Twinkies have danced their way into the hearts of Americans, becoming a beloved snack legend. Their ability to adapt to ingredient shortages during wartime highlighted the brand's resilience and ingenuity. Originally filled with banana cream, a wartime banana shortage necessitated a switch to vanilla cream, a change that contributed to the snack's iconic status. Twinkies became known for their longevity and adaptability, surviving changes in consumer preferences and even a brief discontinuation in 2012. Today, they remain a beloved treat, embodying the comfort and nostalgia of American snack food with their golden sponge cake and creamy filling, continuing to delight generations of snackers.
If you're from Colorado and a baseball fan, you might remember Rocky Mountain oysters, which are a lot more questionable than they sound. Essentially, these are the testicles of bulls, which have been skinned, coated in flour and batter, and deep fried. As an appetizer, they were common at baseball games in the state, but it was a relatively local favorite that did not see much love in other places even in the 70s. Maybe we have had enough fast food and extra desserts, taking a dip into the healthy side of things. We have fried okra in restaurants in Oklahoma, which is actually one of the only vegetables in Oklahoma's official meal. All right, frying it might not exactly be the healthiest kind of thing, but as far as soul food culture and cuisines go, this takes the cake. Many communities that loved soul food would always have a fried okra plate in the fridge.
Freaky's cereal leapt onto the breakfast scene in 1972, bringing a motley crew of characters and a bounty of toys that transformed bowls into playgrounds. The playful packaging and marketing of Freaky's cereal appealed to children's imaginations, making breakfast more than just a meal. The inclusion of collectible toys in each box turned breakfast into an exciting adventure, making Freaky's more than just a cereal. This innovative approach to marketing, along with the memorable characters and tasty cereal, created a cult following. While Freaky's may no longer be on store shelves, the nostalgia for this cereal and its whimsical world remains strong, with collectors and fans still cherishing the memories and memorabilia from their childhood breakfasts.
You might question, what is the difference between soft pretzels here and the ones in New York? Pennsylvania really likes to add a generous serving of mustard, and theirs are pretty much size XL pretzels. Now, this combo might be new to a lot of you, however, and while the ones you might find in New York crack apart easily, these are rather chewy, so kids love them.
Imagine a dessert that defies gravity, layering itself into a trio of textures as if by magic. Launched into the culinary cosmos in 1969, Jell-O 1-2-3 became an instant classic, with its whimsical layers capturing the imagination of families nationwide. This innovative dessert offered a unique eating experience, from the airy and light top layer to the creamy middle, down to the classic Jell-O jiggle at the bottom. It epitomized the era's fascination with space-age technology, making dessert time a futuristic adventure. Although it has disappeared from store shelves, the legacy of Jell-O 1-2-3 endures, stirring nostalgia for a time when culinary creativity knew no bounds, and a simple dessert could captivate the imagination.
You might have heard of Kentucky bourbon before, but brace your ears for bourbon balls. Coated in dark chocolate and filled with nuts and other crunchy ingredients, this would use half a cup of bourbon. Not one to keep around the children, but for people who did eat it, a typical 24-ball serving was the difference between a comforting movie night and being bored on a Saturday. Whether you have seen them in Sex and the City or Castle, a New Yorker getting a soft pretzel to go with their coffee or muffin is an experience we are sure everyone relates to. Pretzels are crunchy, sweet, and filling all in one, which makes them an affordable snack to go for when you want more than a mini bite of something but less than a meal.
With a name as loud as its packaging, Screaming Yellow Zonkers burst onto the snack scene in 1968. The unique combination of sweet and buttery flavors set it apart from traditional savory popcorn snacks. Packaged in an eye-catching black box, it offered a sweet and buttery twist to popcorn that quickly won over popcorn enthusiasts. The boxes, adorned with playful and irreverent humor, became collectible items in their own right. Despite its departure from the market, the legend of Screaming Yellow Zonkers lives on, a testament to a time when snacks could dare to be different and laughter was as important as taste.
Idaho likes to keep it simple, like Hawaii, which is pretty respectable because for them, just potato skins with bacon and cream was the real American dream. Nothing more, nothing less. These light and appetizing potato skins were so popular in the 70s that kids ate almost nothing else. Nufla soup would make heads turn in North Dakota because this soup had something for everything. Chicken, dumplings, potatoes, and other kinds of vegetables made for one melting pot, literally, of different flavors that was a savory lover's dream. Popularly served at vegan restaurants or just as an appetizer or starter at fine dining places in the 70s, it was an icon of its times.
During the disco decade of the 1970s, space food sticks took off like a rocket, igniting dreams of interstellar travel with every bite. They bridged the gap between the fantasy of space exploration and everyday snacking, making them a product of their time. These nutritious, portable snacks were designed for astronauts, offering earthbound consumers the chance to experience a taste of space adventure. Although no longer in production, the legacy of space food sticks lives on as a symbol of a time when the final frontier seemed within reach, and snacks could be a part of that journey, blending nutrition with the thrill of exploration.
Continuing the trend of mini-sized food, on this list breaded tenderloin sliders were these tiny bite-sized pork sandwiches that you could have at events or parties. Tenderloin sandwiches already did so well in Indiana, and it was an adored 2 p.m. lunch for young adults. In terms of accessibility, this made an already loved sandwich much easier to eat. Chili con queso and a fresh basket of crisp tortilla chips at a local authentic Tex-Mex restaurant was the perfect evening snack in the 1970s for Texans. Summer enjoyment may have peaked with this and a DVD of A Race with the Devil. Little room was left for any other dips, at least for tortilla chips, because queso was just in a league of its own, especially for university students.
In the 1970s, Figurines diet bars were at the forefront of the health and fitness trend, offering a snack option that didn't compromise on taste. Their slim profile and diet-friendly branding catered to a growing awareness of health and nutrition. These bars provided a guilt-free way to indulge in flavors like chocolate, vanilla, and peanut butter, appealing to those conscious of their dietary choices. Figurines stood out for their focus on calorie control and convenience, marking a significant moment in the evolution of diet snacks. Today, They are remembered for their role in shaping a more health-conscious approach to snacking, blending the desire for indulgence with the need for balance.
From a state that loves barbecue pork ribs, has its own Kansas-style barbecue, it is no surprise that Kansas adores barbecue corn chips. Essentially just corn-flavored chips that have a gracious amount of barbecue seasoning sprinkled onto them. These were the definition of munchies. 1970. Kansas saw such a spike in popularity for these that store shelves would often be empty. Sweet potato chips are something kids would be selling at stadiums for football games, or grocery stores would have sales or promotions on like buy one get ones. Potato chips are a delicacy enjoyed around the world, and may be the holy grail of snacks, especially in North Carolina. Here in the 70s, people particularly favor thinly sliced ones that break apart like a cracker.
Beechnut fruit stripe gum dazzled the 1960s with its rainbow of flavors and whimsical tattoos, making each stick an adventure in taste and temporary art. The vibrant colors of the gum strips matched their fruity flavors, making each piece a visual and taste sensation. The inclusion of temporary tattoos in each pack added to its appeal, offering more than just a chewing experience. Despite its flavors being short-lived, Fruit Stripe Gum's vibrant packaging and the fun of the temporary tattoos have left a lasting impression on those who grew up with it, evoking fond memories of a simpler time when even a stick of gum could bring a burst of joy and color to a child's day.
Another one that had a head start in its state and an established presence was Spam in Hawaii, so Spam musubi was a natural evolution. Japanese-American restaurants would typically go the extra mile with wrapping it all on a block of rice with nori. Most people would have grilled Spam on their own, but this bite-sized version which completes our trinity was easily the best. Clam cake dominates the New England cuisine in the Rhode Island culinary scene, and many adults fondly gobble these dough balls up. Summers would not be complete at Rhode Island without a serving of this at any party or sunbathing session, along with some chowder to go with it. People who would go on ferry rides to enjoy the summer breeze would always have these with some wine. Clam cake dominates the New England cuisine in the Rhode Island culinary scene, and many adults fondly gobble these dough balls up. Summers would not be complete at Rhode Island without a serving of this at any party or sunbathing session, along with some chowder to go with it. People who would go on ferry rides to enjoy the summer breeze would always have these with some wine. You have heard of caramel popcorn with regular salted popcorn, but Chicago mixed popcorn, which you can find anywhere in Illinois, takes it up a notch. Cheddar cheese and caramel popcorn mixed together made for some loud theaters because people could not stop munching. Maybe just a bit too savory, those kinds of flavors did do well in the 1970s. Buckeyes in concept are not too different from mountain oysters because they are just peanut butter fudge balls that have been dipped in chocolate. Taste-wise, though, you can put them on the opposite end of the spectrum. Regardless, Ohio has a deep-seated fondness for these. Giving you just the right hit of peanut butter along with chocolate, which no one has ever complained about as far as dippings go, it is not hard to see why this was so popular.
Marathon bars hitting the shelves in 1973 stretched the very fabric of snack time with their ruler-embellished packaging and a generous 8-inch span of deliciousness. The long-lasting chew of Marathon bars offered consumers a unique and satisfying snacking experience. The combination of caramel and chocolate in a substantial, satisfying bar set it apart from other candy options. Its tagline, "Lasts a good long time," and distinctive packaging made it memorable. Despite being discontinued in the late 80s, Marathon bars are still fondly remembered for their size, taste, and innovative marketing, embodying the era's penchant for snacks that offered something extra.
For more in-the-box food that is not as out there as Rocky oysters, let's have some snickerdoodles. Coated with cinnamon and the type to crumble wonderfully in your mouth, these were really popular cookies in Connecticut. Platters of these for some weeknight baking would make for some very wonderful confectionaries in the 70s. This is one for the barbecue lovers who just need something on a skewer because chislic fits that definition to a T. Usually you will find mutton or lamb on the skewer, but even beefsteak is used, and this dish is most popular in the neighborhoods and restaurant avenues of South Dakota. March 2018 saw it becoming the official food of the state. Definitely a great choice for Saturday night out with your friends.
Hubba Bubba swaggered onto the bubblegum stage in '79, ready to revolutionize the bubble-blowing biz with its non-stick formula and audacious flavors. Its unique formula made it easier for kids to clean up after blowing giant bubbles, enhancing its appeal. Its introduction of bold flavors and engaging commercials featuring bubble-blowing contests quickly made it a favorite among kids and teens. The brand's focus on fun and innovation has helped it maintain a special place in the hearts of those who remember the joy and playfulness of competing to blow the biggest bubble, making Hubba Bubba a symbol of the carefree days of youth.
Boardwalk fries are actually another platter-filling item that was the primary cause for people's metabolism skyrocketing back in the 70s. Boardwalk fries were not typically cooked like just any old basket of fries. These were dipped in vinegar and cold water before being fried twice in the fryer, resulting in what was an extremely soft yet very crispy fry people would always get with their burger. Utah has some pretty questionable fusion food choices, and green Jell-O with carrots is just the tip of that iceberg. Luckily, the tip is where we are stopping for now, and no, there is no saving grace because it is exactly what it sounds like. Diced carrots dipped in lime Jell-O gave some sort of flavor and sensory satisfaction to people in Utah. But for the life of us, we cannot figure it out. Maybe if you have ever had it, you can share the secret behind the hype below?
Chunky chocolate bars, with their distinctive silver foil wrapping and unique trapezoid shape, have been a favorite since the 1930s. Their dense composition provided a satisfyingly rich bite that was both indulgent and filling. The combination of milk chocolate, raisins, and nuts in a thick, chunky size offered a rich and satisfying snacking experience. Chunky's memorable name and substantial offering set it apart in the candy world, making it a treat to savor. Despite the changing tastes and trends in confectionery, chunky chocolate bars have maintained their appeal, continuing to offer a bite of nostalgia and a reminder of the simple pleasures of a well-crafted candy bar.
Deep frying things and vegetables would not stop at just that, because in Arkansas, fried pickles were the new mood of the week in the 70s. Just plain dill pickles that would be battered. Then deep fried, you could get baskets of these in food streets or in family gatherings as a side dish. Kind of something that hit its peak back in those ages, but it was pretty delicious. Maple syrup has been used as a topping for pies, pancakes, and just about every kind of dessert out there, so maple syrup candy is no surprise, especially in Vermont. Vermont, you see, has a very dense market for maple syrup. It is packed with people just waiting to add that flavor to anything they are having. Maple syrup candy was something kids just could not quit, and something parents really had to control because of how easy starting a habit was.
Ice cube chocolates, known for their smooth texture and unique cooling sensation, have been a luxurious treat since the 1930s. Their small, cube-like shape made them perfect for savoring slowly, enhancing the cooling effect. Their innovative formula allows them to melt quickly, providing an instant cool effect that distinguishes them from other chocolates. This unique melting property, combined with their rich flavor, has made ice cube chocolates a sought-after delicacy for those who appreciate the finer things in life. The elegance and innovation of ice cube chocolates continue to make them a cherished treat, evoking memories of indulgent moments and the timeless appeal of chocolate.
Who can ever say no to corn, especially roasted corn kernel? Corn nuts would be very popular whenever it was harvest time in Iowa. And for kids, these would be a great snack to make the school bus easier. Available in street stalls around the corners or in packets and cans, they proved that Iowa is one state very serious about its corn. Goo Goo clusters paint a picture of sweet marshmallows with maybe some chocolate or caramel, right? That image is almost spot on because this is a heavenly mix of peanuts, marshmallow, nougat, and caramel all drenched in chocolate. Addictive and mouth-wateringly irresistible, any Tennessee Thanksgiving or Christmas would not be complete without a plate of these for the kids.
Since 1965, Quisp has been zipping across breakfast tables, its saucer-shaped cereal and quirky alien mascot capturing hearts and taste buds. The marketing of Quisp utilized a blend of humor and science fiction themes, resonating with the space race era's fascination. The engaging adventures of Quisp the Alien, brought to life through comic strips and animated commercials, made this cereal a hit. Quisp's innovative marketing and delicious taste created a lasting legacy, making it a beloved icon of pop culture and a nostalgic favorite. The cereal's ability to merge storytelling with a tasty breakfast option has ensured its place in the hearts of those who grew up during its peak popularity, making Quisp a cherished part of cereal history.
Arizona would eventually borrow from Tex-Mex cuisine when chimichangas started becoming a regular sight at almost any Latin American restaurant. Fusion joints or roadside stalls, everyone would be selling some kind of chimichanga, which is a deep-fried burrito. Filled with green veggies and sauces, 6 out of 10 people in the street would pick one up on their way to work in the 70s. African-American restaurants made peanut soup a very popular staple of Virginia for many reasons. Affordability and versatility were both something it was great at. You could add just about any kind of dry fruit or ingredients to the soup to make it better. Grandmas would affectionately make bowls for their nieces and nephews on weekends. Joints in Virginia still have it as an appetizer along with bread and rice.
Shake-a-pudding shook up the 60s snack scene, turning dessert preparation into an interactive spectacle. Its DIY approach to dessert tapped into the growing do-it-yourself culture of the time, making it a fun family activity. This easy-to-make dessert offered families a fun and interactive way to prepare a snack, combining the simplicity of shaking with the satisfaction of creating something delicious. The novelty of Shake-a-Pudding, along with its reflection of space-age optimism, made it a memorable part of the culinary landscape. Its disappearance from the market has not diminished the fond memories of those who enjoyed the unique experience of making their own pudding, showcasing the lasting impact of innovative snack solutions.
Stepping away from the fryer and looking more into the drier side of food, trail mixes were a Californian favorite, and they were just a mix of different dry fruits. Almonds, raisins, dates, and pecan or pumpkin seeds you could customize to your heart's desire. Easy to see why something with so much potential for personalization became so popular in a decade all about experimentation. West Virginia cannot get enough of pepperoni, and having it on pizza was not enough because pepperoni rolls took the state by storm. Wraps filled with pepperoni slices, cheese, or different sauces and vegetables, say no more. Pepperoni slices would be thin, but generous servings were fit into the wraps to make for a filling meal you could get for takeout.
The butternut candy bar, a beloved treat from the 1950s, offered a delightful combination of creamy nougat, rich caramel, and crunchy peanuts, all coated in smooth milk chocolate. Its name evoked a sense of warmth and familiarity, further endearing it to consumers. Its distinctive blue wrapper made it easily recognizable, signaling a treat that promised quality and satisfaction. The butternut candy bar is remembered for its comforting taste and the nostalgia it evokes for a time when candy bars were a simple pleasure to be savored. Despite changes in the confectionery landscape, the memory of butternut's rich flavor and satisfying texture continues to resonate with those who remember it fondly.
The pie itself did so well in family celebrations and bakeries that people came up with key lime pie bites, which were just bite-sized variants of the delicious dessert. Amazing as appetizers and amazing as snacks for sweet tooths, people would forget their civil sides around a fresh plate of these. Cheese curds outside of Wisconsin would typically just be pasteurized milk and cheddar cheese, but in the state it takes on a much heartier form. Beer battered and usually deep-fried, served with ketchup or chili garlic dip, this was a great, irresistible snack. Ticking every flavor note it needed to it, many Wisconsin locals have grown up on fried cheese curds and rental movies.
Since their introduction in 1967, ding-dongs have been a hallmark of indulgence, with their rich chocolate coating and creamy filling. The silver foil wrap also served as a barrier to preserve freshness, ensuring each ding-dong was as delicious as intended. The individual foil packaging added an element of exclusivity and specialness to each cake, making them a coveted treat. Ding-dongs tapped into the growing desire for convenient, delicious snacks that felt like a personal indulgence. Their lasting popularity underscores the enduring appeal of classic snack cakes, reminding us of the joy found in unwrapping and enjoying a chocolatey treat made just for us.
Donuts and America are such a classic pairing that it is a no-brainer why Louisiana loves its beignets. Deep-fried donuts that would be caked in cinnamon or other lovely toppings, it was the donut of every sweet lover's eye. Also, maybe the bane of doctors who were sick of dealing with metabolism issues. Kids definitely were very pro-beignets and would devour these up anytime they found them. Smoked salmon dip was something home chefs in Washington loved dearly because it took around 5 to 10 minutes to make, and you would have a very thick, rich, and creamy dip to go with capers or chips. Working out great as a movie night snack or for game night, this was a phenomena in the state. You have heard of moon pies. Now get ready for whoopie pies, which are similar to Spam musubi in concept, actually. Maine would love the cream filling in the center sandwiched between two fluffy cookies that resembled mini chocolate cakes. Perfect for when you needed a hit to the brain to get it working or just felt like indulging in some gluttony.
In the 70s, Gator gum burst onto the scene, squeezing the essence of Gatorade into a zesty chew, a bold move to hydrate in gum form. Its packaging echoed the bright, energetic colors of Gatorade, suggesting vitality and refreshment. Its intense citrus flavor aimed to quench thirst, offering a novel snacking experience tied to hydration and sports. This unique positioning captured the imagination of consumers, especially those active in sports or seeking a refreshing twist on traditional gum. While the concept of a thirst-quenching gum was more innovative than practical, Gator gum remains a memorable product for its attempt to blend the worlds of snacking and hydration in a creative and flavorful way.
Huckleberry jam gets its love in Montana due to a regional privilege people there enjoy, which is the best huckleberries anywhere in the USA. Laying the groundwork for some incredibly amazing jam, Montana residents take full advantage with a spread that goes on literally anything you can think of. Toast, sandwiches, and crepes, huckleberry jam adds the perfect X factor to anything you put it on.
Freshen Up gum, introduced in 1975, broke new ground with its liquid-filled center, offering a burst of flavor that promised instant refreshment. This feature provided a unique sensory experience, setting it apart from other chewing gums on the market. This innovative feature distinguished Freshen Up from other gums, making it a novel choice for those seeking something beyond traditional minty freshness. The gum's unique squirt of flavor captured the public's imagination, making it a memorable and distinctive product in the snack market. Today, Freshen Up is remembered for its creative approach to gum, illustrating the innovative spirit of the 1970s snack scene and the lasting appeal of snacks that offer a surprise.
We are not done with donuts on this list yet, as apple cider donuts prove that whatever the state there is always a market for donuts in the nation. Freshly made donuts right out of the oven sprinkled with apple cider made sweet tooths in New Hampshire go absolutely crazy. Out for a stroll with your partner or simply treating yourself after work or the gym, an apple cider donut was in season and a welcome fan favorite.
In the 70s, milkshake candy bars captured the essence of a diner classic, transforming the malt milkshake into a chewable delight. Their unique selling point was the ability to enjoy the classic milkshake flavor without the need for a straw or a diner visit. Their malt-flavored nougat coated in milk chocolate offered a unique taste that set them apart from other chocolate bars. This innovative flavor profile appealed to those looking for a nostalgic taste experience, reminiscent of enjoying a creamy milkshake at a local diner. Although milkshake candy bars are no longer produced, they are remembered for their distinctive taste and the creative way they brought the beloved flavors of a milkshake into the world of candy bars, blending nostalgia with culinary innovation.
Borrowing a bit from Norwegian cuisine, lefse is a traditional flatbread that has riced potatoes, which Americans would typically eat as a wrap if in a hurry or enjoy it slowly. Versatile and full of potential for experimenting, this dish made it to home chef kitchens a lot, especially in Minnesota, where people were always showing off their new idea of a lefse.
Fortune bubblegum sticks added a twist of fate to every chew in the 1970s, marrying the simple pleasure of gum with the mystery of fortune-telling. The concept of combining a snack with an element of surprise and personalization appealed to the playful nature of consumers. Each stick included a hidden fortune, adding an element of surprise and play to the gum-chewing experience. This unique feature tapped into the era's love for novelty and interaction, making the gum a popular choice among both kids and adults. The anticipation and discovery of each new fortune made Fortune bubblegum sticks a memorable snack, illustrating the inventive ways snack makers sought to engage and entertain consumers.
Catfish is widely available in the USA. Nuggets and America do not need introducing, so fried chicken nuggets was a bound-to-happen cultural moment for USA's foodie history. Breaded and fried to perfection, these crispy nuggets were the perfect thing to grab from the drive-by out with your friends or great takeout for a movie night at home for young adults.
Kellogg's Danish Go-Rounds brought the world of pastries to the breakfast table in the 1960s, offering a whirlwind of flaky, fruity delight with every bite. Their introduction predated the widespread popularity of international pastry options, making them a pioneering product in the breakfast category. Their unique shape and flaky texture, combined with sweet fillings, made them a popular breakfast choice, reflecting the era's interest in global cuisine and convenience. Although they have been overshadowed by other breakfast innovations, Danish Go-Rounds are remembered for their role in making pastry flavors more accessible and for the joy they brought to breakfast routines, highlighting the evolving landscape of morning meals.
Boston baked beans candy, just like crab chips, specializes in being easy to consume and make in bulk. Originally starting out in Massachusetts as peanuts that were coated in candy, which gave them a sweet crunch, they got popular enough to get packaged variants. Grocery stores would be filled with two things: kids and frustrated parents trying to haggle with them for one packet less in the 70s.
In 1966, a new star was born in the snack aisle, Doritos. Originally introduced as simple salted chips, they underwent a flavor evolution with the introduction of nacho cheese in the early 70s, setting the stage for a taste revolution. This flavor explosion led to a diverse portfolio that captured the hearts and taste buds of snack lovers everywhere. Doritos not only became synonymous with bold flavor, but also with innovation, constantly adapting to changing consumer tastes. Today, although we know Doritos are still available, their range exemplifies a dedication to flavor innovation and societal trends, making each bite a testament to its evolution from a basic tortilla snack to a taste marvel.
These snacks fed a generation that is mostly gone now. If you remember any of them, tell someone younger before the memory leaves too.